Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan's very special U.S. premiere of 6 Minutes to Midnight. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to fill the air for a couple of minutes as everybody gets settled in their Zoom room. And then I'm very excited to introduce our panel for today and to discuss this film. This film is being provided to us by IFC Films. So a big, huge thank you to IFC Films, who will be releasing this film both theatrically and virtually in March. And I want to give a big thank you to Tamar Simon of Mean Streets Management for making this all happen. As you slowly get connected to your sound and get accustomed to everything, please leave your camera on. We miss you. We love seeing you. And we want to make you a part of this conversation. We will have a set time for Q&A with the audience. So you can put any of your questions in the chat and we will call on you and open your mic if we're able to ask these questions live. Coming up, of course, many programs for JCC Film, and we hope you'll join us for all of those amazing screenings that are coming up, many films available. And please join us on a weekly basis for all of these events with amazing Q&As. We still have Some Kind of Heaven running, if you haven't seen this one, about the Villages, the largest retirement community in America, over 100,000 people in Florida, and it's a fascinating film. Our film course After Schindler kicked off last night, so please check that one out. And next week we have Caregiver, a Love Story, who we'll have for conversation as well. We just added our February films, so please check them all out at jccfilm.org. I think with that, I can introduce our panel, which I promise you will be like nothing we've ever hosted before, with some very unique elements. So I'm going to start. We have here the filmmakers themselves. We have the director of the film, Andy Goddard. Andy, say hello. So you're
hello.
Here.
Hey, hi everybody.
Thank you, Andy, for joining us. We have Celyn Jones.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. They're a co-writer of the film.
Hi,
and
there.
we have the star and co-writer of the film coming to us live via Marathon. This is something that I promise I've never experienced before. Eddie Izzard. Eddie, thank you so much for being here.
Hi there. Apologies for being running, but I'm in the middle of running 31 marathons in 31 days for To Make Humanity Great Again, a title of which I don't know how I got. I think someone else had one similar, but America is included in the whole of the world, as it should be. So anyway, sorry, but I'm still in this. I've got about 40 minutes to run. So apologies for being here doing this.
I think it's wonderful. I want to highlight our fitness center at the JCC, where I think now everybody should be running a marathon while they're doing their interviews.
Yeah, it's the new thing. It's the new 21st century thing.
And raising money for a good cause, of course, is a wonderful thing. What day is this for you on the marathon?
It's day 26, marathon 26. And at 7:15 London time, I will be stopping in about 40 minutes to do a gig. I have to do a stand-up gig, my other day job. Again, raising money to help make humanity great again. So that's the crazy thing. But this is 26. I've run 26 marathons now. When I finish in 40 minutes, I've run 26 marathons in 26 days.
And for those who haven't been following, how do they follow this? Give us the plug for this.
Just tell them to go eddieizard.com. You can donate from anywhere in the world. I got up to the 31st of January. That marathon will be for New York. We'll be running a salute to New York and America on the 31st. It'll be my final marathon. But all the details at eddieizard.com. And you can buy the hats as well with Make Humanity Great Again. All the money goes to charity. All the profits go to charity, I should say. But that's by the by. But it's the same spirit that we went into this film, 6 Minutes to Midnight. We're trying to do a lesson from history with this, is probably the buzzword, the strap line that should be with 6 Minutes to Midnight. And yeah.
Yeah, I want to jump into that, and let's dive into 6 Minutes to Midnight, which is a fantastic film and an important one for now. Let's start from the beginning. Where did it start? Where did this story come from? Give us a little bit of a background. I understand that there's it's somewhat based on true elements.
Yeah. Kel, is it okay if I start this? Because it's Kel and Andy came in with me and really got me from I was on the starting blocks, or just after the starting blocks, and with Kel's help and Andy, we got this through and we got this made. But I found the story. There's a little seaside town in England called Bexhill-on-Sea, near Hastings, Battle Hastings. You might have heard of Brighton. That's quite a big city near us on the south coast. And just before the war, it had 26 schools, 26 boarding schools. That's very weird, but it was linked to aristocracy and money and all that kind of stuff. And one of these schools was the Augusta Victoria College for Girls. And because I've got a bit known, I am a patron at the Bexhill Museum. And the curator, Julian Porter, he showed me the blazer badge for this girls' school. And they were all German girls there learning English. It's a sort of finishing school. But they seem to be the daughters of the Nazi high command, because the badge, well, they didn't seem to be, they were. The badge had not only the British flag on it, but the Nazi flag, and then Augusta Victoria College, Bexhill-on-Sea. So I thought, there is a film in that, a girls' school, and these young girls doing the Nazi salute, listening to Hitler speeches in Britain. It just rang all the bells. So I started trying to develop it, not very confident in my ability at writing dramas, and I didn't want to muck it up. But I knew Celyn, and Celyn we'd done a film together, and Celyn had already done Set Fire to the Stars with Andy Goddard. I didn't know Andy, but they did it together. And we bizarrely re-met at the Cannes Film Festival, didn't we, Kel? Do you want to take it from there?
Well, I love the glamorous segue, the Cannes Film Festival. But we met there, and Eddie and I had done a film called Castles in the Sky. So lots of films with long titles and sky involved in them. And he'd seen Set Fire to the Stars that Andy and I had made together, which is behind my head there, and which is set in New York. And Eddie had seen that, and at the same time showed me the picture of this badge, which I thought was an incredible sort of piece of social history. It just sort of sent your brain in different directions when you looked at it. And Eddie had the idea of this very ambiguous protagonist, this character with sort of dual heritage, and the premise of the school. And we were thinking, what would Alfred Hitchcock do with a premise like this? You know, what we loved films like 39 Steps and Ipcris File and those sort of old school sort of thrillers, or sort of classic thrillers, but yet with this sort of lightness of touch and a pace and a humor. And we've got the hearts and minds of the girls with the idea of this sort of thriller pulse, because history tells us that the war is about to, you know, start through the 3rd of September. So Eddie and I started writing. He was filming in different places, so we'd meet in different hotels all around the country, writing the script together. At the time, Andy Goddard, Andy and I had made Set Fire together, and Andy had already gone and done another movie. And when he came back, we were having a coffee, chatting what we were up to. And I told you the premise, didn't I, Andy? And you said, yeah. Eddie Izzard, Nazis in Bexhill-on-Sea, Hitchcock, where do I buy my popcorn? And we were like, well, better than that. Why don't we do the journey together? And that's your segue. Yeah. It's not a Cannes Film Festival segue, but it's an honest one.
I feel, Celyn, you're like my cool down music to Eddie. My heart was beating so fast listening to Eddie. I feel breathless. It's like when listening to Eddie. I'm all sort of chilled now. Yeah, I mean, I felt it was like, you know, as Celyn has said, we had sort of writing relationship already. We've made this film about Dylan Thomas, Set Fire to the Stars, and I was looking to work with Celyn again, and he told me about, I knew that he'd worked with Eddie on Castles in the Sky. And all the things that Eddie and Celyn have said to you, they brought to me, and I read, I mean, the script went through so many permutations, but again, it was the badge that Eddie took, this school badge, which was kind of like our Rosetta Stone, and everything sort of built from that. Just this kind of incredible kind of anomaly, this weird footnote in British history, that there was this school in which these Nazi schoolgirls were learning English in the late 30s on the brink of World War II. I'd never heard about it. And then, as you sort of get into the story, you understand why it was perhaps swept under the carpet. And I think Eddie and Celyn had taken the part. I think you had like a year, 18 months with Eddie sort of writing. And then I think it must have been kind of like maybe the back end of 2016 that I came onto the project, which was like the year of the Brexit referendum. So kind of that dialogue about the rise of the far right and xenophobia and racism and the idea of not only sort of our relationship with Europe coming from England, but also just the idea of how we communicate with each other, across the borders of different cultures. That whole dialogue was in the ether, and it felt, even though this was a period thriller, it felt it was a kind of like look at that dialogue. And those were always sort of close to our hearts in sort of making this film. Yes, we wanted to entertain, but we realized, as Eddie said, let's try and make humanity great again. And while I feel we've made a beautiful entertainment thriller, at the same time, I'd like to think that audiences can take away some kind of nourishment and maybe, further that dialogue.
So let's dive in right to that. Where do you feel is the importance of this story in today's world, very specifically? I mean, making humanity great again is a very large statement. Let's get
it is.
A smaller, finer one is a lesson from history. That's the one that I kind of want to go with it. This is a lesson from history. What I kept saying, because we had 6 German girls in there, and Carla Yuri, who's Swiss German, playing the teacher, I said particularly to the German girls, this wasn't a German problem. This is a human problem. We know this now because of the rise of the far right again in many different countries. It never was a German problem. Maybe Hitler was the one who stirred it up, and he was Austrian anyway, but we know there were Nazis in many countries. We know there was an America First that Lindbergh was doing, and very much enamored by the Nazis back in the 40s, to the 30s, going into the 40s. So yeah, this was a human problem. And we also didn't want to do British good, Germans bad. We wanted to say just ideas can be good and ideas can be bad. And it's hearts and minds. So that's, what do you think, Andy? Something like that?
I totally agree, yeah. And it was, and it's not just about saving hearts and minds, but it's about saving the hearts and minds of young people. That was what was always sort of key to me, just the idea that, how easily young people, when you're at such an impressionable age, you're always looking to sort of belong to something. And the way in which, it gave Thomas Miller, the hero of our story, it felt such a propulsive drive to try and save these girls. And it felt like a noble endeavor. And again, it felt like something that I could see reflected, you just look outside your window anytime over the last 5 years. And I think, you can see those themes playing out. Yeah.
Celyn, you wanna add to that as far as the messages of the film?
Well, the messages of the film are through the hearts and minds of the girls, and to sort of see the world in a grain of sand, to sort of quote Blake, to sort of take the idea of sort of watching Judi's character on that road to redemption and that huge turnaround, and realizing, and then through the girls, sort of, children, you fill them up full of good, you get good out, you fill them up full of bad, you get bad out, and it was the idea of, could we, the idea that, yes, within it, there is, I get a lot of inspiration from Shakespeare, can you take big themes and he'd bury them in popular culture, for as many people as possible. And I think with this story is, we have such big, strong themes, but sort of, if placed through the eyes of Thomas Miller and through the sort of journey arc of Judi Dench's character, Miss Rockall, and then in the hearts of the girls, we're able to experience or a story. But it's, of course, it's the tip of the iceberg, and it's sort of, it's got to be through education, really, So I guess, there were films that we referenced, like, Dead Poet Society, and we thought of things like that. We 39 Steps I mentioned before, but can we take a protagonist that we don't, quite often everybody needs to know everything about the protagonist, the rubber ducky story, as Sidney Lumet would talk about, but we love the idea that Thomas Miller is there and we don't know why, but we're able to sort of discover that world through his eyes, and he's able to discover it. So we were sort of always playing with these characters and the situation, knowing that sort of nobody could tell the story better than history itself, really. So a lot of context was going. So the idea of, learning from history and making humanity great again, of course, absolutely. But first of all, we have to do a story that's engaging with characters that are compelling, and by being compelling, we just have to care about them.
Thank you. I want to jump. I have much more to ask, and I want to jump into for a minute on this concept that you mentioned of the different characters representing different parts of German-British relations, and people taking different stands, from the people who feel that the relations with Germany during World War II were people who were very close to Germany, and people who could be further away and saw them as great enemies. And you have that represented through different characters throughout the film, and kind of give the full spectrum, which is a nice way to kind of analyze this relationship. We just showed a film here not long ago called The Keeper, which also touches a little bit on German-British relations post-war, which it's interesting. It's different than American German relations. It was much closer, and here we find even a story of like Germans who were actually up until 1939, who are possibly affiliated with the Nazi Party in England. Can you talk a little bit about having those different characters and and the different sides they represent?
Can I just ask quickly, the people we're talking to, have they seen the film already?
They have seen the film. They're supposed to see the film. If you have not yet seen the film, it's available for a couple more days, and you could tell your friends we've just opened some more tickets. But yes,
okay, so I can assume that some of the team, that's good. Well, we know this. The Nazis, if you study Second World War and leading up to it, there were Nazi parties in every country. Mosley, there was Oswald Mosley in Britain, had the black shirts. And Diana Mitford, he married. Hitler was a guest at the wedding. I think one of the witnesses at their wedding. And Hitler believed that the English, maybe the British, but certainly more the English, were Aryans as well, and we could do a deal and all this kind of stuff. And there were a number of people, particularly members of the aristocracy, who were very good friends. And we've got to say the Nazis here as opposed to the Germans, because it was the Nazis and it was Hitler and that high command that had taken over. They had kidnapped the country from that 1933, and good people stood up and said, hang on a second, and they were murdered so quickly, it was disgusting. We know this. So we really got to talk about the Nazis' relationship with other right-wing people in Britain, as opposed to Germany, because I want to keep Germany pure, because before 33 and since 45, they've just been exactly like the rest of us, another country with some good, some bad, some this, some that. But we wanted to show that Miss Rockall, Frau Rockall, was actually the woman in charge of the school. That's all historically true. We know the girls were listening to Hitler speeches. We had an au pair tell us the story of that. We know that they were going up to London and they were doing the Nazi salute left, right, and center. And they were telling the locals, this was in local newspapers, that the war is coming and we're going to win it. This is the girls doing that. So we knew it was a hearts and minds, but they were there as ambassadors, and a number of people. And if you know the Lindbergh story, he flew the Atlantic and everyone in America went fantastic. And then he got very enamored and started the America First party. And a lot of people were not so enamored, but some people were still enamored, and that was, they were going to link up totally with the Nazis if he'd got through. And then Pearl Harbor happened and Lindbergh was gone from the political scene. So yeah, we wanted to show this, that leading up, the close relationship that this school was. And Himmler's goddaughter was actually at that school, and von Ribbentrop, who was the ambassador to Britain, his daughter was at the school as well. So we know that this was all based on real fact. The school, the building is still there in Bexhill-on-Sea, the actual building. I went there with Judi Dench. We looked around it. They knew about it. Apparently there's a ghost upstairs as well. So they probably don't even know that this film is coming out. But all that basis is true. And then we put our film in on top of that. And Thomas Miller is really actually Thomas Müller. His father is German and his mother is English, but he's made himself Thomas Miller, and he's half German, half English. And so he loves both countries. So that's, we wanted to show that those people exist in Britain and that other people were trying to fight them. And the girls were going to be pawns in that story, in the chess game of life. It was the girls were being used, and it was a crazy plan. Why would you take the girls prisoner? But you know, someone upstairs came up with this plan, and so we go through our story. Guys, you want to add to that?
Yeah, Andy or Celyn, do you want to join?
Yeah, I think it's like, as you know, I think you hit it on the nail, Isaac. It was, you know, it was to show that spectrum. You know, it was to show, you know, whether you're a fair weather fascist or whether you're, you know, a full-on 100% turbo fascist. From a moral kind of standpoint, both are absolutely unacceptable. You know, to say I'm a little bit fascist is to say I'm a little bit pregnant. It's like, as soon as you dip your toes into it, you're in it. But, you know, we wanted to see, you know, that the stepping stones between, you know, you have Hitler at one end of the spectrum, and then you have like Judi Dench's character at the other end of the spectrum, and how seeing it through her eyes and the way in which she's seduced perhaps by that iconography, and it's filtered through, I guess, her relationship with the girls and that rather kind of rose-tinted romanticism, of which Carla Juri's character is part of, but she's kind of further down that line. Then you have James Darcy's character as the fifth columnist. But each, you know, hopefully we see the way in which, you know, it's easy to stand outside the circle and judge, but at the same time, the way in which how people can be seduced and sucked into this, especially young people. And then you have the girls. And so it was just to try and flesh out the story and make it more three-dimensional and to show the way in which, you know, you have that, you have exactly that spectrum.
Celyn?
Yeah, I saw a question pop up on the transcript next there, or popping up from the lovely audience. Hello, everyone. And the question: what happened to the girls? And they mysteriously got back to Germany somehow just before war was declared. Is the truth in the history of it. Now we've gone on this journey. We decide we know what's coming down, and at the same time we need to feel a little bit of bittersweet. So everyone who's watched the film will get that sort of bittersweet because we know what's coming down, what's going to happen next through history. But in the characters that we sort of toyed in the writing of the script of what, you know, where do we leave the story with the girls? And I think we made the right decision when we sort of write it of sort of where those characters sort of say goodbye to each other, because if we'd have followed it sort of faithfully to what happened, then it becomes quite a sort of, it leaves a different, you know, it sends the story in a different direction. It opens up more chapters than necessary. And I think the story ends there. So showing that broad spectrum, absolutely, that's exactly what I think we did, or we set out to do. At the same time, the reality is those girls were associated to the Nazi high command, and they did eventually end up back in Germany. So,
thank you. I want to pause for a moment on. We've been mentioning Judi Dench here, of course. Dame Judi Dench, you know, one of the greatest actresses of our time. How did she come on board? How easy was it for her to do that Sieg Heil scene, which I can't wait for that to become a meme? Then maybe tell a little bit about her participation.
I think we might have committed treason, really, by that.
Yeah.
For Judi.
You want me to tell the story?
Please.
I'll dive in. It's Judi Dench and her family have a great sense of humor, and I didn't know that they were fans of my work. They've been listening as a family to some of my older records, my old albums, and Judi started coming to my shows. This is a comedy show, my other day job. I try to have two parallel day jobs, and so I got to know her through that. She would come to opening night parties, and she was one very chatty and great. She would send me bananas with good luck written on it, which I think was just fun. And then I got cast. Stephen Frears asked to see me, and I was cast as Edward VII in Victoria and Abdul, Judi playing Queen Victoria. And I picked up the phone to talk to her. I was talking about this, and before we were even shooting it, because I thought I should ask her if she wants to play this role. She'd be fantastic in it, but also it'd be counter. You know, she's a national treasure, so if she's playing a Nazi sympathetic character, that might be interesting for her. But I kind of immediately pitched it to her before we'd even met up for the beginning of Victoria and Abdul. So I thought, what are you doing? Just calm down. Let's go and do the film and have fun and see where we get to. But then later we were shooting at Osborne House on the Isle of Wight. We were there for 3 weeks. And her partner, David, mentioned, oh yeah, Eddie, tell everyone about your film. Judi's in it. And I said, are you sure you're in it? I didn't think we'd actually agree there. So anyway, they talked about that Judi was looking for roles that went against the grain. And so it came out, and she was thinking about it. She was kind of positive, but not quite sure. And her agent wasn't sure. And I think Andy and Carole backed me up on this. We weren't sure Judi was in until about 2 weeks before the filming of it. I think she pushed to be in it. She thought it was a good thing to do. And then 2 weeks before, I know that she was going for costume fittings, and I thought, we're doing the film. If Judi's doing costume fittings, we're doing the film. And that's when I knew we were up and running. Guys, was that kind of...
Yeah. And, you know, and I think Judi brings this wonderful pathos with her. And I think the appeal, the sort of the tantalizing appeal as a director was the idea that what I love more than almost any other actress I can think of is the idea that I think as an audience, we feel we know Judi, you know, just through this incredible legacy and this incredible body of work. And the idea that we're almost challenging the audience's relationship with her through this character. The idea of just the idea of Judi Dench as an image doing the Sieg Heil. It kind of, it does kind of, I think it's brilliant that it's her, because it really challenges, it cuts to the heart of a lot of the things we're trying to say in the story. The idea that, oh, it's Judi Dench. And then it's like, yes, but it's, as Eddie said, it's going against the grain. You know, it's going against the grain of what you might expect. And then you have to sort of enter into the dialogue, you know, that we're trying to articulate with this story. But yeah, it's, I'm overjoyed that she played Miss Racol, and yeah, it's just, thank God it was her. Yeah,
you did a great job.
Can I say something? Cal, tell them about the day that they did it, because it was a really tough day when we did that scene, and the girls had to repeat it. Cal, do you want to tell that story?
The Miss Rockwell section of them listened to the radio, and then the apologist speech after that.
Well, particularly the Sieg Heiling, because they had to repeat it so many times. Andy was shooting it left, right, and center. So it was all day. And then remember, there were photographs taken by Amanda, our stills photographer. You came in and said, get rid of them. We're going to delete them. Remember that story? Right.
Yes. Right. Yes. Because then otherwise they would become a statement. Do you know what I mean? They would become a statement. We didn't want that. And the girls we have actresses from Germany, and they're listening to that speech, and they understand the words that are being played through that radio, and so they're experiencing it on a level that none of the crew and the rest of us are experiencing it. So it was quite a very emotional day and sort of quite a heavy day, but as a sequence and into the Judi speech, that was always there from our first draft of this movie. We always knew we wanted to tell that section, which came from when Eddie met this au pair who talked about listening to the radio, and they would see Kyle and join in, that we always knew that if we did that, if it was handled by somebody like Judi, that the message would be even more powerful, because Judi is in a lot of people's hearts. And so in a way that's, find the monster in the man and the man in the monster, that's what you get. So it was a very heavy day. But what an amazing performances by all those girls who really should be sort of stars of, well, they're all sort of stars of Europe at the moment. They're, we made this film a few years ago, but They are the sort of beating heart of this film. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really hope, you know, it opens them up to brighter things. They really deserve it, you know. It was one of the most raw, emotional days. And I remember having kind of split loyalties because it was emotional, but at the same time, you know, we had to complete the scene. But yeah, I'll always remember that day.
So you had to do it. And one more thing I'd add, because the girls were German, and I was trying to make connections with them as strong as I could. I decided, this is a little bit weird, but because I do my show in German, I sat them down under a tree. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I sat them down under the tree by the big school in a break, and I did my show to them in German to show them that, you know, that so they could feel that I am their German teacher who's on their side, even though they might be hating me or thinking I'm wrong, or later on I turn out to be a criminal, but I'm not really. So I just wanted to have that connection with them. So so that was good. And we also had 14 British background artists, extras, who were also the girls. And they were kept, as you may know from films, they're kept separate from the actors. But I went up to the German girls and said, would you mind if you all mixed together? I think that would be better. And they were totally up for it. So we had basically 20 girls all acting, hanging out together, playing together. And that was kind of beautiful.
It's a wonderful element in the film. Let me just ask, as far as you mentioned references and inspirations and kind of the style of the film and Dead Poet Society, I totally get that. But I also sense a little bit of James Bond there. There's even a moment, Eddie, where you're in the quite a big portion of the scene of the film where you're actually in a tuxedo and running and have a lot of action. And I see you're still running, but
well, this is the thing. There is a shot where, you know, I think Andy got it nice. I just belted it every shot, because they tend, if you're a trans person, people think, well, you can't do action. So I thought, you know, I'm creating this film. I have this part. I'm going to just run as fast as I bloody can, like a kid. And there's a point where I'm just steaming down there. So that was great. And the tuxedo and the camera was an Andy or a Kel thing, specific camera that they wanted to be there. So it kind of looks beautiful. We've also got Das Boot in there, because I'm not sure if it was Andy or Kel's idea to sing It's a Long Way to Tipperary. But if you know the original film Das Boot, about the submarine story, Jürgen Prochnow, they all sing It's a Long Way to Tipperary to pretend they're a British submarine. And I thought that was a lovely thing that we've got It's a Long Way to Tipperary in our film about German girls and singing it. So yeah, it's nice to kiss up.
A little bit of sound of music too when they're all singing on the stairwell there. But
yeah, it could be the
I'll take all those references. I'll take all those. There's another film, I don't know if you know this, Isaac, have you ever heard of the film Went the Day Well? It was technically like a sort of Second World War propaganda movie. I didn't know of it until Andy shared it with us, but sort of early on in the process. But there was a certain sort of tone to these films where we can balance it out, because when you think of seaside Britain, it comes with this sort of frivolity, you know, it comes with a certain aesthetic, and this film is always going to be a balancing act with the sort of the drama and the thriller, the lightness of touch and the heaviness of the message. So there were certain things that you could sort of lean on, really, and it would be the singing and the playing and the swimming and, you know, the seaside and the locals. You know, when Jim Broadbent's your bus driver, you know, you're in safe hands and things like that. So everything else was, the way the film was cast and dressed was sort of walking that fine line all the time. Would you agree, Andy?
Yeah, I think so. And it's I remember like the other two references, Brighton Rock was always a reference in my head when you know, I heard the original pitch, and as we were developing the script, I was thinking of those kind of post-war British movies that came out of Pinewood Studios and Gainsborough Studios. John Bolton, who really produced with his brother, the Bolton Brothers movies. Brighton Rock, because of that light and shade against the English seaside, that was always sort of prevalent in my head. And the 39 Steps as well. Yes, for all the deer and do, and because it's a classic wrong man thriller. But I think one of the things this had, and to get back to what Celyn was saying about, you know, we had a responsibility to entertain as much as the weighted dialogue that we've discussed. I think one of the things that we did in our first movie, Set Fire to the Stars, because we have such a love of actors, we love this idea of creating all these little character cameos. And even if an actor's on screen for like 30 seconds or a minute, we give them their moment in the sun. And I think one thing that kind of post-war British cinema did really well was exactly that. And the 39 Steps is full of lovely little moments like that. And I think one moment that we kept referring to, which encapsulates that sensibility, is there's a scene with Robert Donut's character, who, like Eddie in that film, he's on the run and he's in a train carriage, and there's these two salesmen, and I think they're like panty corset brassiere salesmen, and the plot point in the scene is simply a hero needs to stay anonymous because he's on the run and the authorities are looking for him, and he sees his picture as a wanted man in the paper. That's the story beat, and it could be stripped down to just that. But what that sequence does beautifully, it gives those two characters their own little sketch, their own little moment. And it gives a kind of, there's a lightness of touch, and there's just a lovely nuanced kind of comedy element that runs parallel to the action story. And I think on the back of, the work I'd done with Celyn before, we kind of felt this was a wonderful opportunity to sort of continue that way of working. And also it dovetailed really nicely into all those kind of reference points from those kind of post-war British movies. Went the Day Well is another example. Again, just this lovely gallery of actors, some carry the film and others, even if you're on screen for just like a minute, it's like no one gets left behind. And I think, especially in that kind of the seaside section of our story, it kind of tapped into that. So those things were always kind of sitting on my shoulder when I was directing.
So let me ask one more question before we take a couple of questions from the audience. I know there's a lot of questions out there, but because we're the JCC Manhattan. Yes, Eddie.
Can I just say, I've got to go in about 6 minutes. I'm supposed to finish, but I want to help as much as I can. So I'll try and hang on as long as I can. But yes, fire away, fire away.
So we're the JCC in Manhattan, and there's one element of the film that I feel it's important to bring up. There's the crocodile alligator lesson. Can we talk a little bit about the importance of that scene and why you wanted to put it in there, of course, with reference to Jews and Nazi anti-Semitism?
I guess it's just the way. I mean, I'll tag team this with Celyn. It was just, again, it's cutting back to how young people can be indoctrinated, and I guess the scene was that scene is pivotal in the narrative because it comes at the point where Carla, Yuri, and Judi Dench's character kind of go on divergent paths. And I think what spills out of that lesson and what's written on the blackboard, that's kind of the wake-up call to Judy's character. And from then on, she starts going down a different path. And I think in terms of dialogue and in terms of a tone to the scene, it was just that chilling idea of playing around with quite childlike dialogue. Those are almost kind of like a nursery rhyme motif of having this seemingly innocent lesson about the differences between animals in the animal kingdom and wondering where it's going. And then you get this very kind of weighty payoff. And it was just a consolidation of Carla's character and where she was going. That's kind of where it came about, really.
And we're in a school, and young minds are so impressionable and malleable. And we found, when we were researching, we found this book that was, I don't know, I can't remember the German for it, but it was a propaganda to promote sort of anti-Semitism in young people. And there was a character, the toadstool or something like that, comparing Jewish people to
the poison toadstool. Was it?
It's the poison toadstool. And so that was so abhorrent to us, the idea that this sort of indoctrination started so young, that it was as Andy says, where these characters are going on these divergent passes, whereas the classroom was this place, it feels so full of new ideas and Eddie's character and fun and singing, and then all of a sudden it's a lesson, but it's a different type of lesson, and it's sort of just touching on that radicalization. We thought we couldn't not go there when telling a story like this. I mean, it was we had to, otherwise it would have felt like we were just not doing our job, really, by not sort of alluding to it. So we wanted to do it in the most sort of deft and delicate way, where it was to do with the characters and to do with the young people, and it was embedded in sort of very real things, terrible things that happened. Yes, the poisoned mushroom, wasn't it? It was the book that we...
Yeah, and I think it just came back to that idea of you take young people,
yeah,
you fill them with love, or you fill them with hate. You know, what do you choose to do? You know, and Thomas Miller stands on one side, Hitler stands on the other side, and it was just, yeah, we knew we needed a version of that scene somewhere in that story.
Yeah. And
Eddie, did you want to add to that at all?
No, this was, yeah, it is tricky. It's hearts and minds, and Hitler was giving this stories of, we could be great again, we could be the greatest in the world. You know, well, in America, you've just been through someone called Trump, and he's been saying, you know, we're the greatest, America #1, make America great again. We want America to be great, but we want everyone to be great. That's what humanity is about. But it's a beguiling narrative, and some people get swept up with it. And we've seen it, we saw it happen back there. So you need to show what the fact they came in so young. Hitler knew this. He comes in young, gets them into the youth, or the BDM, the Bunddeutsches Mädel, which is the girls doing all the movement. That was the swastika badge they had on them. And then he's got them, and by the time, you know, they start invading, then you have to do it. It's wartime. You're a patriot or you're a traitor to Germany, which is the Nazis. It's not actual Germany, it's just the Nazis' version of Germany. And then they're lost. They are lost, and you have to stick a strong mind. There's a famous picture with about maybe 500 people doing the Nazi salute, and one guy wasn't. It's a famous one. If you search online, you might see it. One guy not doing the Hitler salute, and everyone else is doing it. They're doing it out of fear. Some of them do it because they love it, and some out of fear, some just going along with it.
He has his arms folded, doesn't he? He has his arms folded in that picture.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. It's an amazing story. So there were brave people in Germany fighting against them. People got out, people fought against it. Watch, Casablanca, because there's Victor, the guy who's playing the hero, singing the Marseillaise. He is a German actor who got out, playing a French guy or a Czech guy, I think he's playing. But the German guy is also a German actor, and he plays the bad Nazi, and he got out first to Britain, and he got his friend out, who is the Czech guy. He got his pass so that he can go and stay in Britain. Both of them are good guys, and that's kind of wonderful. Oh, I've just finished I have finished my 26 marathon. Sorry, guys.
Congratulations, Eddie. I know you might have to run, so thank you. And congratulations on completing the marathon and on a wonderful film.
Thank you, everyone watching. Kel and Andy, you're in good hands with them, guys. And I'll talk to you, Kel and Andy, very soon.
Well done, Eddie.
Well done, Eddie. Well done. Isaac, what did you think of that section of the movie?
Section of the, I mean, listen, you hit the nail on the head, and make it very clear, and bring it back to really, I mean those origins and those concepts of anti-Semitism that is in the basis of this whole education is something that it's almost forgotten because it's so basic, and I think it's important to bring up and to show how miseducation can happen.
Yeah.
Let me take some questions from the audience, if that's okay. It's all on you guys now. We're going to start with Eva. Eva, you have a question.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, Eva.
Yeah. Hi, Eva.
Hi. Love the movie. Love the suspense of the movie, the scenery. But my question is going back to the Judi Dench character. I'm going to read the question because it appears unclear to me what the true sentiments of the Judi Dench character were. She was pro-German and defended Sieg Heil, but she stands there when she sees the Jew Gentile written on the chalkboard. So I wasn't really clear if she was repulsed by that, or, or if that was also still part of her, persona. And also, what do we know about the actual headmistress?
Well,
Oh, sorry.
no, Celyn, go for it.
Eva, I've always seen it as that she's pro girls. She's pro her girls, and she's sort of ill-informed in that. So that the scene where she is listening to Hitler, and it's almost like she's carried away by the emotion or the moment, or because that came from the au pair who Eddie spoke to, who said, I just didn't know what I was doing. I just joined in. I didn't know the full significance of it. So for us, not to just sort of save the character, but it's actually, we've always seen that if she is, her life is the school and the girls, and that's why she is appears sort of ignorant to the rest of the world sort of throughout it.
Yeah. I mean, when Ilsa shuts the door in her face, she knows that something dark is going on behind that closed door. That's something that's contravening the rules of the school and her relationship with the girls. And I think when she sees what's written on the blackboard, it's not an immediate act of repulsion, but she knows it's wrong. And it's almost like a stutter step that then carries her down the right path. And as Celyn said, her drive is to protect her girls, to protect her flock. It's all about her girls.
We have a question from Judith. Judith, you're on.
Thank you, Eva.
Hi. Yes, I was wondering if the girl who, I can't remember her name, the character who feels herself apart from the others, who's,
Gretel.
Yeah, thank you. Whether she is supposed to either be Jewish herself, or if she's just a foil to show how these girls and by extension the Nazi people in Germany will be treating people who don't go along, and so that's my question.
Thanks, Judith. I think it sort of it lies with what we were talking about earlier about the characters sort of being a spectrum. Not all, some are fully on the way to drinking the Kool-Aid, others are not. And I think with Gretel that like with any group of people, there is one, you can find a character that might feel not as included as the others, and the fact that they're young girls and she feels a bit different and looks a bit different. She wasn't meant to be Jewish, but she was sort of meant to just not be as, her parents aren't as well-to-do or as high-ranking as the other girls. So we wanted to sort of feel like that. What was it like to be the lonely, the susceptible one, the one that thinks a little bit different to the other girls, the one that could kind of show the burning ember of hope within inside them that we could do as storytellers. So she wasn't meant to be Jewish, but she is different to the other girls, and she is treated differently, and she sort of thinks different as well, because she creates different connections, like anyone who works with young people, or if you ever worked in schools. And I taught a lot through my 20s, and it is a spectrum. So is that Andy, with anything to add there for Judith? Is that close to answering anything?
Yeah, very close. Yeah, and I think I'm okay if people want to make that connection and that interpretation, but it wasn't something we wanted to put a button on, because we felt, then it becomes about one child in terms of the anti-Semitic debate, where it's like, yes, the lesson is anti-Semitism, but it affects all the girls, because whether you're Jewish or German, it's like today's because you're Jewish, tomorrow it's about the color of your eyes, the day after it's about the color of your hair. It's victimization. And she was just the sort of the pensive, discerning individual at the back of the classroom that was maybe just thinking on a deeper level. And that's why she had this more than slightly ostracized relationship with the other girls.
So we're going to take one last question. There's a question from Mark. He can't he can't open his mic right now, but wanted to know why were the girls in England?
Well, Carole shared this with me. As I understand from Eddie, it was originally, it was a finishing school so rich families from Europe would send their girls to this school. By the 30s, it was predominantly German girls. And of course, with events happening in Berlin, on the cusp of war, those German girls were the daughters of, some of them were daughters of the Third Reich or goddaughters of the Third Reich. So they were really, it was an elite school for rich families to send their daughters to learn English to improve their chances in life, and as a finishing school. So that's why they were saying it was a prestige school to send your daughter to if you didn't come from England.
Yeah. And you can see the photographs at the end of the movie. They're the real pictures of the school, and that's the real girls. And yeah, they were there, and that was the jumping off point. Why were they there? That's why we wrote a film about it, sort of imagining what could have happened and why they were there, because people must have been asking that question. Why were they there so close to September 1939? But I hope that answers your question, Mark. I'm sorry we can't see you or hear you, but the truth is strange.
I want to thank Andy and Celyn, and of course Eddie as well, for being here for this conversation. This film, once again, it's opening by IFC, and a big thank you to them in March. So please tell your friends. It's available through JCC Film for the next couple of days, and please spread the word so people can enjoy this fantastic film and start building the buzz so people can really hear about this film as it's released. And of course, till the release, I understand it's going to be doing many wonderful Jewish film festivals and mainstream festivals, and hopefully we'll get a lot of attention and raise a lot of good discussion like this one did. I want to thank everyone for being a part, thank our audience for being a part of this as well. Again, a big thank you to Tamar Simon from Mean Streets Management, and I hope everybody stays safe, and we look forward to seeing you all in person very soon and at other events in the meantime virtually. Thank you all very much, and have a great day.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Isaac.
Cheers.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.